Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what is gearing up to be the absolute largest, most record-breaking initial public offering in human history. We're talking about the SpaceX IPO. And this isn't just a story about rockets and space exploration. It's actually a fascinating behind-the-scenes look at market mechanics and how our financial system really operates.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The target valuation for this IPO is a staggering $1.75 trillion. Just to put the sheer massive scale of that number into perspective, at that valuation, this company would be worth more than every single American defense contractor combined. Literally, if you took the market caps of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Disney, Nike, and Starbucks, and you smash them all together, this is still bigger. It's a valuation so massive it honestly defies traditional financial gravity.
But here's the central mystery of our explainer today. If you look at the consolidated company's performance last year, they actually lost money. A lot of it, nearly $5 billion, in fact. So we have to ask the obvious question here. Who buys a company that's bleeding $5 billion a year at the largest IPO valuation in history? I mean, how does a nearly $2 trillion valuation make any logical sense for a business losing that kind of cash?
3 businesses in one.
To really understand this sky-high valuation, we've got to pull the company apart. If you ask 10 random people on the street what SpaceX sells, almost all of them are going to say rockets, right? Or Mars missions. That's the public perception. But look at the actual financial reality. The launch business, the part that actually sends cargo to the space station and launches satellites, only brought in about $4 billion last year. That's just a quarter of their total revenue. And $4 billion on its own definitely doesn't justify a $1.75 trillion price tag.
So where is the actual money being made? The true financial engine of this entire operation isn't the rockets at all. It's Starlink. Starlink brought in $11.4 billion, which makes up roughly 61% of their total revenue, leaving the rocket business and all other operations to make up the remaining 39%. Starlink is absolutely the crown jewel here. Think of it like a cash-printing satellite internet provider. It's rapidly scaled to over 10 million active subscribers across 150 countries. And what investors are really drooling over is the incredible efficiency underneath all that revenue. In just 2 short years, Starlink's profit margins expanded from 41% to 63%. And they aren't just selling to you and me. They've got these highly lucrative contracts in maritime shipping, commercial aviation, and even a classified defense version called Starshield for the Pentagon. So between Starlink and the rocket business, they actually brought in roughly $8 billion in profits.
Wait a second, if the rockets and Starlink are generating an $8 billion profit, where on earth is that $5 billion loss coming from? Well, let's move to the third piece of this puzzle, their recently acquired artificial intelligence lab, xAI. This is the exact piece that radically alters the financial picture of the whole consolidated company.
The financial realities of xAI are pretty startling. SpaceX acquired this AI lab in an all-stock deal that valued xAI at $250 billion. But here's the kicker. The AI lab is currently burning through more than $1 billion every single month. On top of that, by March, all 11 of the original co-founders, we're talking heavyweight researchers from places like DeepMind and Google, had completely departed. It was publicly acknowledged that the whole asset essentially had to be rebuilt from the foundation up. So it's this massive cash burn from xAI that dragged the combined company down to a $5 billion loss last year.
Part 2. Rewriting the Rule Book.
To really get the real story behind this IPO, we have to look at how the macroeconomic rules are being changed in real time, starting with passive index funds. The NASDAQ 100 index is basically the gold standard for growth companies, and there are investment products out there holding over $600 billion that strictly track this index. By definition, once a company is added to an index like the NASDAQ 100, these passive funds have absolutely zero choice. They are mathematically forced to automatically buy the stock, instantly injecting billions of dollars of investment capital into the company.
So the crucial point is what happened on May 1st. NASDAQ quietly adopted a series of rule changes that just so happened to perfectly accommodate a company that previously wouldn't have even qualified for entry. The required wait time to join the index dropped from 3 months to a mere 15 trading days. The minimum free float requirement of 10% completely eliminated. And they introduced a brand new 3x float weighting multiplier. Let's break down exactly what each of these means for the market.
First up is the fast entry rule. Under the old system, a newly listed company had a 3-month seasoning period. That existed for a very good reason, to give the public market time to discover the actual price of the asset before passive index funds were forced to buy it. Well, the new rule compresses that 3 months of price discovery into just 15 trading days. That's essentially just 3 weeks. It severely limits the time the market has to find the true fair value of the stock before all that automatic demand just kicks in.
The second change involves what we call free float. Free float is simply the percentage of a company's total shares that are actually available for the public to trade. Historically, NASDAQ required at least 10% of a company's shares to be available to join the index. SpaceX, however, is reportedly targeting a free float of just 4 to 5%. 6 months ago, that would have been an automatic disqualification. But today, with the minimum requirement totally gone, the runway is totally clear for them.
And that brings us to the hidden multiplier, which is honestly the most fascinating rule change of all. Buried deep in these new rules is a mandate that for companies with a free float under 20%, NASDAQ will treat that float as if it were 3 times bigger than it actually is. Think about that. This means a tiny 5% float gets weighted by the index as if it were 15%. It's a system designed to artificially manufacture 3 times the demand from index funds for a very, very limited supply of shares.
Part 3. The ultimate exit liquidity.
All right, so we've looked at the underlying business and we've seen how the market rules were rewritten. Now we have to connect this directly to your wallet. When a company goes public, they decide exactly who gets to buy the initial shares. In most IPOs, the standard practice is to allocate roughly 5 to 10% of the offering to retail investors, everyday people. But for this specific listing, the company is reportedly targeting a massive 30% allocation to retail buyers. They are preparing to dump an absolutely unprecedented amount of supply directly onto the retail market.
So why this massive retail allocation? Well, the company's CFO, Brett Johnson, told bankers on the record, quote, "Retail buyers have been incredibly supportive of us and of Elon for a long time, and we want to make sure that we recognize that. That's the official justification. It's being framed as a reward for loyalty from everyday supporters, rather than the traditional reasons like long-term shareholder alignment." But if you talk to financial analysts looking at the actual mechanics of this IPO, they see a very different story unfolding. Portfolio manager George Noble offered this really stark warning. He said, "Your 401k is the exit liquidity." What he means is that the buyers and sellers don't show up at the same time. The rules have been carefully engineered to force index funds to buy early. So shares will inevitably move from insiders who have a very low cost basis straight to retail investors and passive funds, which means everyday retirement accounts will be the ones forced to absorb these shares at peak valuation. And that right there perfectly highlights the great catch of passive investing. For years, index funds have been sold to us as the smart, convenient way to invest. They offer low fees, broad diversification, and this wonderful set-it-and-forget-it mentality. And hey, all of that is true. But the double-edged sword is that the exact same mechanism that makes passive investing so easy is the mechanism that legally forces your retirement account to automatically buy whatever gets added to the index. You have no input, no vote, and absolutely no choice in the matter. Which leaves us to ponder a pretty provocative question as we wrap up. What is the true cost of convenience in your retirement account? Because when the rules of the market can be changed to guarantee demand for a company carrying a massive, unprofitable AI division, well, it really makes you rethink what it actually means to be a passive investor. I hope this explainer gave you a clear, structured look behind the headlines of this historic IPO. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep asking questions about where your money is really going.